Okay, take it away, Teamer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Audio Programmer virtual meetup. The December edition today is the last meetup of 2021. It's again me and Josh. We are your hosts tonight. And we also have two wonderful guests, David and Jatin, who are going to talk to us later today about lots of interesting things. But before we get to that, Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I am, for once, not in England. I'm actually down in sunny Florida. And you can't tell it's sunny because all of the curtains are closed at the moment, but it is very warm out. And we have actually a really exciting theme because we have two Americans living in England that are going to be presenting today. So there's American in England audio programming theme today.
That's really cool. I normally also live in England, although I'm not American, but right now I'm actually also not in England like yourself. I'm in Athens in Greece. So the weather is also pretty good here. So
as someone who's in London right now, I would say stay where you are. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Josh, that's cool. Florida, yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice out here. And yeah, I guess we should take a moment to give thanks to our sponsors, Focusrite Juice and Sonics. Thank you for sponsoring the Audio Programmer Meetup. And this is really cool. We have two great presenters for us today, very experienced, and they have some very exciting topics to talk to you about. So we have David Molnar and Jatin Chowdhury. And they're going to be talking to you about some really exciting things. And I think that we should just jump right in and go to the first presentation. What do you think, Teamer?
We totally should. Before we do that, let me just make one more comment. Everyone who's watching on the YouTube stream, please ask questions. You're going to ask them to the speakers, and you're hopefully going to get answers for those questions. But if and when you ask those questions on the YouTube chat, please prefix them with the word question in capitals. So it's easier for us to spot the questions in the chat because there's sometimes more chit chat going on there. So it just makes it a little bit easier for us to spot the actual questions to the speakers so we can ask them. With that being said, let me introduce your first speaker for tonight. I'm very excited to introduce David Molnar, who is the founder of Renegade Soundplay. And he's here to talk about HiScore, which is a sound generator that he has created. Take it away, David.
Thank you, Timur. Well, I'm David Molnar, founder of Renegade Soundplay, and I created a product called HiScore, which is a sound generator for 1980s video games. And one of the main goals I had for this product was I really wanted you to get that feeling you were immersed in 1980s video games. So everything from the sounds to the graphics. And I did it all in Kontakt. And I have to say, I really pushed Kontakt to the limits, and I'm going to get to talking about that. So let me show you HiScore. Let me bring up Kontakt. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so do you see Kontakt right now?
Yes.
Okay, and this is HiScore right here in Kontakt. And so HiScore, like I said, is a 1980s video game sound generator. So I actually created some sounds for it. I sampled some sounds. I'm going to talk about that. The idea was to be able to play sounds that you could play on something like a Nintendo NES, a Nintendo Game Boy, Commodore 64, an Atari 2600, an old Texas Instruments TI. I even actually sampled sounds off an old Texas Instruments TI-99 4A. That particular product has a very interesting speech synthesizer built in, so I took advantage of that. So, so just talking about HiScore, it works like a regular subtractive synth. So there is, I've got three oscillators I call wave generators: wave 1, wave 2, and wave 3. I've got a noise generator. There's an envelope generator for the volume, envelope generator for the pitch. I've got a pitch LFO, a volume LFO. I've got a separate envelope generator for the noise generator. And then the pitch and volume LFOs are actually assignable, and the pitch envelope generator, you can assign them to different places. In addition to the sound generator, I actually put it on a separate page because I ran out of space. I've got a filter, and it's a 2-pole or 4-pole filter that does low pass, high pass, band pass, and notch. And you can assign it to any one of the 3 wave generators or the noise. The pitch LFO and the volume LFO are assignable to the filter, but then you also have, the filter has its own envelope generator. In high score, I also included what I call the step arpeggiator, because one of the interesting things about old video games is they were so limited on the number of voices, so that if you wanted to play, say, a chord like a piano accompaniment, and then have a lead line, and then have a bass, and then have some drums, well, you didn't have that enough voices to do all that. Maybe you had 3 voices or 4 voices or something like that. So one of the things that you would get, you would, instead of playing that piano chord, you would have an arpeggiated chord. And let's just give you an example of that. Find a good one here. So let's see here. So instead of playing just the chord, it was arpeggiated. So I have the step arpeggiator, and you don't have to play fast arpeggios, you can play slow things on there too. And it's syncable to your host, which you'll need if you're using it in a DAW. I also added some effects. Let me just turn off that. So I have a note delay, because in old video games, you didn't have a real delay effect. You didn't have, there wasn't enough memory in there to do it. So instead, a lot of programmers just repeated notes at different volumes. So I created this note delay that just takes the note you play and repeats it. So let me just do something simple here. So let's see, if we come here and I turn on the note delay, that's just repeating the notes. And you can have up to 8 repeats. Another thing I put in high score was the speaker simulator. And you can come over here, it's turned off. But when I click on one of these 3 devices, it now sounds like it's coming out of this device. So this is an actual Sony studio monitor that I did an impulse response scan of. Also a ZX Spectrum, the speaker in the ZX Spectrum, and Game Boy. And that's the speaker simulator. So the nice thing about Kontakt is it's hugely customizable. So you're not only creating a skin, but you're actually writing code. And Native Instruments created something they call the KSP, the Kontakt Signal Processor, a scripting processor, excuse me. And let me see, I think I have that up here somewhere. Let me see if I can find that. So many windows open right now. Well, either way, they have there is a nice manual for that, which I seem to have lost. Here we go. So you can just go onto the Native Instruments website and download this. And it's pretty much, it's a very structured language, but it is not object-oriented. So it does have its limitations, but it's very usable. And so what kind of things you can do with their KSP language is basically assign all of the graphics to, all the graphics elements, assign them to various objects inside Kontakt. So if I click on this little wrench icon, we go under the hood, you can see here's the first oscillator square wave right there. And I come down here and you can see in Kontakt, you have all of these different effects. This is what's under the hood of Kontakt. So you can assign, using the Kontakt script processor, you can assign all of your controls that you have created, your graphics user interface, to any of these items. inside Kontakt. Right there. So yeah, so here I've created, this is my script right here, which is, how many lines of code is this now? 24,477 lines of code. They don't let you use multiple files, which is very unfortunate. So it makes for a big file. So yes, so High Score works with, because it's in Kontakt, it works with samples. And I recorded samples from the Commodore 64. I recorded samples from an Atari 2600. Some sounds I created myself. So like a simple square wave and some of the pulse waves, I actually just created those myself. Other sounds like the Commodore 64 sounds where there's like this real gritty tonality to them. I sampled those right off of the actual product. Spent a couple of weeks sampling the Commodore 64. Let's see. Then one of the things I sampled, which I'd mentioned before, was a Texas Instruments TI-99 4A. And the thing about that was I wanted to sample some of the vowel sounds from the speech synthesizer. So if I just use the first oscillator here and I scroll down and I come to the speech sounds, let's find that. So like here, let me turn off that note delay. So that's just an ah, and then I did E. And I did the O. You know, I have to say that I did have quite a bit of feature creep as I was just doing this for myself at first. So I decided to go ahead and create a sound bank of words.
8, 13, 14, 13.
So I have 2 sound banks of words, and I just so I just sampled a bunch of words off the speech synthesizer on the TI home computer.
New insert send right destroy lanet destroyer spark moon white yellow orange green red black.
So let's see. So I'm going to discuss here. I talked about the speaker simulator, and
One question is,
yeah.
what did you use to sample your recordings?
Oh, okay. So I actually, of all the things, I used Audacity. I recorded all my sounds into Audacity. And I know, cheap freebie app, but it worked well and did the job. Yeah.
Can you share anything more about the setup? Like, did you just mic the, like, how do you?
So like the Commodore 64, I took the audio out and ran that direct into my sound card. Things that I did mic. So when I did the speaker simulator and I recorded sweeps of things like the, in fact, I'm going to stop the share for a second. I'll show you. So let's see here. So I actually did a sweep through here, and I used Logic's sweep generator. And so I actually sweeped this, and it was sitting on my bench right in front of me, right behind where the computer screen is right now that I'm looking at you on.
This is amazing.
And I sweeped it, and first I played High Score through it, and I just had the idea for the speaker simulator, and I used this. It's all boxed up. I had a little instrumentation microphone I bought for this, and I just set up some blankets around it to deaden the room a little bit, and I ran a sweep through it, and then in Logic it'll turn that sweep into an impulse response, and then I just used the convolution reverb in Kontakt to create the speaker simulator. This, very short decay time, but it worked. I was actually amazed how well it worked, and how, like, I played Kontakt through the actual speaker in that monitor, in that Sony monitor, and I had an idea what it sounded like. And then I played it through the speaker simulator, and my speakers were positioned somewhat similar to where I had the monitor on my desk. And I was just amazed how it just sounded just like it. and it blew my mind. Then I did the ZX Spectrum, which I have right here. So I did the little speaker in the back. I don't know if you can see that. And I did the Game Boy right there. Now, the Sony monitor has an audio input, so I just ran the output into the input and recorded that. But to do these was a bit more complicated. I actually took them apart and I ran wires from the speaker to my mixing console. And that's how I did the sweep of these. And I just, had the microphone on a boom stand out in front, hit go and swept it. And then when I was finished, I unsoldered the wires and put this thing back together. And same here with the ZX Spectrum. Here is the very Commodore 64 that I sampled for all the Commodore sounds.
There's another question from Jas asking, have you ever thought about downsampling the 8-bit downsampling to 8-bit using simple 8-bit encode and decode? I'm not sure if I understand that question quite. Have you thought about downsampling to 8-bit using simple 8-bit encode and decode? I'm not sure. Jas, if you want to rephrase that.
I don't think I quite understand either. Yeah.
Yeah. One question that I was wondering is, because you come from a hardware engineering background, how did the knowledge of that contribute to your approach to making the product itself?
I've done a lot of hardware over the years for various music industry and audio companies, and I've also done a bit of embedded firmware. So I already knew C and C++, so I had that background, but I also had the music production background. So I wanted to start developing apps, but for me, I didn't know Juice, and it's still on my list of things to learn. So for me, the path of least resistance was to try and do it in Kontakt, because the basic framework was already there. It was already set up to go. Now, little did I know that I was going to need to do a lot of this scripting code. But for anybody who's interested in doing something for Kontakt, if you can program in C, you can learn the KSP coding. I mean, it's very simple like that. So, I mean, does my hardware background give me any extra experience? I mean, maybe because I knew how to hack into the speakers inside these things and wire them up or that kind of thing. I'm comfortable working on old vintage gear. I don't know if that quite answers your question, but I'm.
Yeah. I think that helps.
Yeah,
that definitely helps answer it.
So I'm going to share my screen again. I want to show you something.
And there's a little bit of trivia, which is that a lot of people don't know, which is that Timur used to work on the Kontakt team.
Oh,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Wow.
Yes, I worked on the Kontakt, the actual Kontakt app itself. Yeah.
Oh,
when I was
very
at
cool.
Native Instruments. Yeah, that was quite a while ago. It was around 2014, 2015.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah.
Kontakt 5.5 was like the big release that I kind of did a lot of work on, but that was quite a long time ago.
When I originally started developing it, I was doing it for Kontakt 5, and I wanted to license the Kontakt player because not everybody has Kontakt. So I wanted to license the free Kontakt player from Native Instruments. So they said, well, you've got to do it for Kontakt 6. So that's when I moved up to Kontakt 6. Let's see here. So one of the things that I did inside here also is the custom wave generator. So let me just omit this. So we're in a consistent space here. And see all these Commodore 64 waves. And this is the custom wave generator. If you hit this edit button, it pops open this little, see, look at that. I just went to move it. It doesn't move. It's a graphic, but it looks like a window. And the custom wave generator allows you to create your own very lo-fi waves. One of the things, like for instance, in the Nintendo NES and in the Game Boy, like in the NES, there's a triangle wave, but it's actually made out of 4-bit steps. So each step is one of 16 positions. So vertically in here, you can basically move one of 16 positions. Now I only did 16 steps horizontal because it's very resource hungry. especially on my older MacBook Pro that I used when I developed this. Now on my newer MacBook Pro, I don't seem to have the problem with that, but not everybody has the fastest, latest machines. So basically, you can hear all these artifacts in the sound because of its very lo-fi nature. Now, I wish I had a scope hooked up that I could show you this. So how did I do this? Let me tell you how I did this. I basically created the narrow pulse wave that is 1/16 of the cycle. And when you hit a note, it is actually playing 16 simultaneous notes or voices, one for each step in the wave. And they're offset in time to account for each of the 16 steps. So that really is just a bunch of pulse waves being played in sequence to create the custom wave. And it does get to be a little CPU heavy. Like here, this one note press is taking 7% of my CPU right now. So originally I was going to do 32 steps, but it just was too much. So I did just 16. On the Game Boy, you can actually do a 4-bit by 32 step custom sound that you can create on there. But because of Kontakt, I limited it down to 16. But I had a lot of fun making this. You know, I'm into old vintage video games from the 80s and 90s. And so I kind of went with that whole theme. I did all the graphics. I actually made all the graphics in Gimp, of all apps, the open source graphics editor.
Nice.
So, I mean, I don't have Photoshop, but I have an app called Pixelmator, but Gimp actually didn't do all this kind of crazy anti-aliasing that I couldn't turn off in my other app. So that was a nice thing about using Gimp. So.
Wow. Tima, did you understand Jass's question about
Yeah. So I think their point was that they were actually not talking about downsampling to 8-bit, but use like 8-bit bit depth, like using like an 8-bit encoding for the actual audio, and whether like that's something you considered. I think that's for.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, so they're writing, sorry, not downsample, but decrease bit depth using 8-bit encoding and decoding.
Right.
So that was the question. That was what the question was about.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if I was, you know, there's kind of two different things going on. You know, a lot of these old systems were just pulse waves. And so there's really no reason to do that. And you could play that in whatever bit depth you want. Then you know, the Commodore 64 has sawtooths and things like that, but that's done on a custom chip called the SID chip that most of you are familiar with. So I did not do any bit reduction on that. No.
I guess that would be like a Bitcrusher, right? That's quite a different effect from like.
That is
kind of what you're going for in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk?
You know, if I was playing, if it was like an Amiga where you're playing back sounds through the Paula chip on the Amiga, that is a true 8-bit kind of sample playback system. But here, no, I'm not doing anything like that. No. The custom waves actually turn out to be 4-bit.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit just about so a lot of people want to start up their own plugin companies, want to sell their own products, and I was wondering if you could just tell them a little bit about your marketing ploy and your website, and just a little bit about the brand and that side of things.
Sure. So I mean, I've done it all. So I mean, I'm in addition to like doing all the coding and sound design and all the sampling, create all the presets, all the graphics for the product. I mean, I handle the website, And so for the website, I created a Shopify website. But if you wanted to market your own products, if you want to sell them yourself, I created a business entity here in the UK. So I created a private limited company in the UK that is Renegade Soundplay. And so I did that. And so then I opened up, business banking. I mean, I did the whole, it's a whole business that I'm running basically for this. And I've got more products in the works, which hopefully will be coming out in the new year, actually. Yeah. But yeah, oh yeah, I mean, it's, as far as marketing goes, I did an interesting marketing exercise in the beginning. So when I started the business, I created, I did a Kickstarter, and I created a Kickstarter to mostly get the word out about HiScore, because nobody's heard of the product, let alone my little company. So I actually ran a Kickstarter for a month and had various rewards, and that kind of spread the word about HiScore, and paid for the licensing fee for Native Instruments, which was nice. Oh, yeah, so I worked with Native Instruments and licensed the Kontakt player. They're very nice people, very easy to work with. What else? Josh, any more questions in that vein? Anything specific you want me to talk about? As far as marketing, I did a lot of Facebook ads, both during the Kickstarter campaign and afterwards. I ran Kickstarter ads for a while. Excuse me, Facebook ads for a while. I've done social media stuff. It all comes down to, like, I'm just one person and there's only so many hours in the day these days. So if you have other people you can work with to help with some of this, I highly recommend it. Yeah.
And what
Can I
about?
ask you, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Timur, please.
Can I ask you a question? Is this something that you like live off now, or is it just like a little side project and you have like a manager where you're doing something else?
It's provided a good chunk of income for a while. I got to get some more products out, but eventually I'd like to just live off of this. Eventually, yeah.
I was going to ask. There's a question actually from Sono Lumi. How did you generate the consonants in speech synthesis? Is there a standard method? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So like I sampled all those sounds. I sampled them off of this 1981 TI 99 4A computer. I don't know if you can see this section on the side is the speech synthesizer. I don't know if you can see that right there.
Yes, yes, you can see it.
So all the sounds were actually sampled off here. So and like I said before, originally I was just going for the vowel sounds because they're very musical, and I was just going for that. And as I was going along, and I was just typing in words and having the TI computer say them back to me, I said, well, wouldn't it be fun just to put a bank of speech sounds in there, and people can just include them in their productions, and if they want like some classic phrases from old video games, they can just hit different keys to come up with some phrases. So I just put individual words, and that's how I did it. So there wasn't any kind of, I didn't generate those sounds per se, other than just the TI home computer did it. And I just kind of went into the basic programming language on the TI home computer and typed in a few lines of code and just played back the text for me. Yeah, and then I just sampled that into Audacity and sliced and diced it.
Yeah, I know Jatin is really happy about this because he loves analog modeling and analog gear. So this is right up his street for sure.
You may want to look up. I'm sure there's plenty of articles on how they made the old speech synthesis, like Texas Instruments did it. I know it uses linear predictive coding. Beyond that, I can't speak much to it. There's a whole, there's a special cartridge for the computer that was, of all things, the terminal emulator cartridge. So you can turn your computer into a terminal. But when you added that cartridge in, you could jack into the speech synthesizer in the regular BASIC, the built-in BASIC. Very weird. This computer also, in hindsight, I didn't know it as a kid when I was using this computer, but it has a really weird system architecture. It has a 16-bit CPU that is bust 8 bits out to all the peripherals, so it's not really being taken advantage of. And when all the registers reside in RAM, actually, so that they're not very fast. But it was cool for the time. But yeah, look up Texas Instruments speech, and you can learn all about it. Yeah, I think it's the same chip they used in the Texas Instruments Speak and Spell, actually.
Amazing. Do we have any other questions or comments from the audience before we finish up? I'll give a couple seconds for the delay of the video to catch up before we.
I see one that's maybe interesting. CGO435 asks, is there any legal stuff involved in sampling sounds from hardware and selling them?
The sounds that I sampled, I would say no. They're not actual. You really run into legal problems if you're sampling from products that use samples, because those samples are covered legally like a recording that you've done. Whereas I'm just sampling sounds made by raw sound generators. Even the speech is actually generated. Yeah.
So is it basically like you buy a guitar in a shop and then you sample that guitar that you bought? Yeah. Is it basically like that?
Yeah, like that, or you have a piano or you have a violin and you record samples off of that. Yeah.
Plus, I think another key element of that, not being a lawyer or anything, is that you're not looking to market it as that product in software form as well. So if you,
I am not, I seem to recall, I don't know how many years ago now, somebody went to the trouble of sampling a bunch of sounds from a Roland D50 and marketed it as a kind of sample product that, you know, a VST that plays sounds of the D50, and Roland went after them for that.
Yeah.
Because the D50 uses sampled attacks. So, or for instance, you could get away with sampling in 808, but you can't get away with sampling in 909, I believe, because in 909, I think it samples.
Really? A lot of lawsuits out there waiting to win. A lot of lawsuits waiting. Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to sample a Korg M1 because that's all samples. So the samples are covered by copyright law for recordings. But you can sample a vintage synth where you just have an analog oscillator, for instance, generating a tone.
Okay. Looks like we're out of questions. Anything else from anybody before we wrap it up?
I think we can wrap up. Yeah, but that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
So much fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.